Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you joining us today. I'm Divya Gupta, representing the core team of 4E Wave. As we begin, I would like to extend my gratitude to each one of you for being an integral part of this national movement towards energy conservation, the 4E Wave. Today, we are starting an exciting journey, a journey of learning and exploration in the field of energy conservation. Our very first web session, as you all have been informed, on the topic of energy transition is just the starting point, as we will be making it a regular feature. It is indeed heartening that on our inaugural web session, we have here with us Mr. Sanjay Sharma, the convener of 4E Wave, and OSD at Power Development Department, Government of Jammu and Kashmir. He holds a BTech in Electrical from NIT Silchar and an MTech in Power Systems from Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh. He has numerous publications in both national and international journals across various interdisciplinary domains to his credit. His extensive travels around the globe have enriched his knowledge and experience in profound ways. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Sanjay Sharma to share a few words with us before we delve into today's session. Sir, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Divya. Good afternoon, everyone. At the outset, on behalf of the 4E Wave team, I extend my warm welcome to our esteemed resource person, Mr. Rajneesh Agarwal, Group General Manager from NHPC, who will be conducting today's webinar on the topic energy transition. A hearty welcome to all the participants joining us from across the country for this inaugural web session under the 4E Wave initiative. I must congratulate each of you for being a part of this unique and pioneering national movement on energy conservation, with participants registered from across the country, spanning different age groups, from primary school students to senior citizens. The 4E Wave team represents a diverse spectrum. With such diversity comes great power, the power to exchange and share ideas that can propel our nation towards achieving its ambitious target of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy capacity by 2030. And then realizing the commitment made at UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, COP26, to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. It is through collaborative efforts like ours that we can make significant strides towards these vital objectives. All we need to do is to meet more often, have more such virtual or maybe physical sessions also in future for finding innovative ideas, thought-provoking suggestions to conserve energy and adopting renewable resources so as to make our country self-sustainable in the energy sector. Although our initial focus would be to create awareness amongst the masses in our neighborhoods, schools, colleges, and various gatherings about the significance of the energy conservation, embracing simple yet impactful practices like turning off lights when not needed, replacing incandescent bulbs with LEDs, and adopting star-labeled appliances, and various other means to avoid wastage of energy. Our ultimate aim is to make a substantial contribution to our nation's pursuit of international climate change goals. So if you have any insights to share, wish to connect with fellow members, or deliver a speech on the theme of energy conservation, don't hesitate to reach out to us at info@4ewave.com. Your energy and enthusiasm will drive us closer to our nation's ambitious goals. We have so far received an overwhelming response from the registered members in the form of numerous suggestions and queries, which is indicative of our shared commitment to take this movement forward. Let's maintain this momentum, igniting change and making waves in the realm of energy conservation together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are honored to have with us today Mr. Rajneesh Agarwal, who has a rich experience of over 34 years in hydro power development and renewable energy. Mr. Agarwal is a civil engineer, having completed his undergraduate studies at IIT Roorkee and furthered his knowledge with a QIP in structural design from IIT Delhi. Currently serving as the Group General Manager of Operation Maintenance at NHPC Limited Jammu Unit, he is responsible for overseeing the civil engineering aspects of operation maintenance and risk management across all hydropower stations of NHPC. Mr. Agarwal's leadership extends to mentoring young energy leaders within NHPC and sharing his expertise as a guest faculty at prestigious institutions such as NPTI, IIT Roorkee, and Jamia Millia Islamia. His dedication and contributions to the field of hydropower have earned him recognition, including nominations as a key speaker on hydropower at conferences such as CBIP conference in Kazakhstan. We are privileged to have Mr. Rajneesh Agarwal with us today, and we eagerly anticipate his insights and experience in our discussion on energy transition. Sir, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope I am adequately audible. Divya, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to thank Mr. Sharma. Audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
At the outset, I would like to thank Mr. Sharma and Ms. Divya and the other senior officers of PDD Jammu and Kashmir for giving me this opportunity to interact with the young generation students and natives of Jammu and Kashmir to understand where India is heading towards in the realm of energy transition and what India would look like in terms of energy sector in the years ahead. So I have a small presentation. I would not claim absolute authorship of this presentation because this is a collaborative effort of our planning division and strategy, business development and consultancy division, where I was the general manager just before coming and joining this Jammu office in December 23. So I would be going ahead with the presentation now. Divya, it's not showing the presentation. Can you help me to share it? ये नहीं आ रहा है इसमें। आना चाहिए। दिव्या जी को बुला लीजिए।
या प्रेजेंटेशन क्यों नहीं आ रही दिव्या? किसने ली?
इसमें नहीं आ रही, शेयर में नहीं आ रही।
विंडो।
Okay. Thank you. I hope the screen is visible to all the participants. So today we will discuss about the Indian power sector, hydropower, particularly to the industry which I predominantly belong to, and the clean energy transition which India is going to experience as we go ahead to 2030 and beyond. Today's presentation is primarily focused on in 4 different sections. What is the scenario overview of power sector? Second is the hydro power development in India, government commitments and plans, and role of RE and hydro, renewable energy and hydro in the clean energy transition regime. This presents the national grid as it stands on October 23. The figures are not very different as of now, slight increase in the installed capacity. So we can see that starting from 1362 megawatt at the time of independence, today the national grid looks like 4,25,536 megawatt. And the important thing in this slide is that we are increasing the rate of addition of capacity every year. We can look at in the first 33 years, we added around 25,000 megawatt. The next 27 years, we added around 90,000 megawatt. A little over 1 lakh megawatt. In the next 20 years, we more than doubled the capacity. And in the last 6 years, we have added another around 1 lakh megawatt capacity. So the government is also very focused to see that the installed capacity in the country is in line with the GDP anticipated growth rate, and the increase in the per capita consumption of power linked with the higher aspirations of the population of the country, as well as the economic growth the country is going to experience. If we look at the breakdown of the total installed capacity, then we can see that the bulk of the capacity is thermal or fossil fuel based. Around 2,39,000 capacity, 56% of the total installed capacity is thermal. The renewable has of late caught up with the national power grid, and around like 1,32,133 megawatt is the renewable energy. This does not include the conventional hydro. So if we add conventional hydro of 46,850 megawatt, which is around 11%, then we have a total of more than 1,75,000 megawatt of renewable energy, and which is around 41% of the total grid. So by doing this, we have met the commitment made to the world that by 2022 we will have 1,75,000 megawatt of renewable energy. So the balance power in the grid is from nuclear, that is around 7,480 megawatt. The right side slide gives us the distribution of the total installed capacity between the three major players: the central government, the state governments, and the private sector. The important thing to note over here is that the share of private sector today is more than the sum of the state and the central sector. So the state and central sector are approximately half of the private sector. So going forward, there will be a major participation by private sector in the in national electricity sector, and the role of center and state will be a little less as compared to what it was at the time of independence and during the first 50 years beyond independence. Now, what we looked at right now is the installed capacity of the country. Now we will look at the same picture in terms of the energy. So the total energy generation today in the country as on October 23 was 148.82 billion unit, out of which renewable energy sources generated around 10%, that is 15.04 billion unit. Hydro generation was another 8%, so around 12 billion units, and the balance was the fossil fuel generation. So this is the distribution of energy generation. Now this slide captures the deficit in the demand, which was peak demand met in the country. So if you look at the green graph, then the gray figures you see is the demand unmet in the initial years. In 2009-10, there is 12.7% peak deficit, and going forward, from 2014 onwards, we see there is a drastic reduction in the peak demand met, demand not unmet. So this is a very positive indication of the self-sufficiency scenario of the power sector in the country. Now, studies done by our central electricity regulator, Central Electricity Authority, indicates that we would be needing, we would be heading towards installed capacity. We would be heading toward energy consumption of around 16 lakhs 10,000 million units by 2026-27, which will further increase to around 21 lakh 33,380 million units, which would effectively mean that we'll be growing at a rate of 6% CAGR in terms of energy consumption. And the annual load factor has not been computed for the years 2026-27 and 26-27 because there will be a major participation of renewable energy going forward. The estimated peak demand by 2042, again done by Central Electricity Authority in the 20th Electric Power Survey, indicates that there will be a peak demand of around 574.7 GW, which will correspond to around 3,776 billion units of energy by 2042. So this is the growth rate of the peak demand as well as an energy requirement for the country. Now this figure is a figure which is talked world over. You can see the per capita consumption in India as on 22-23 stands around 1331, which is roughly around 1/3 of the global average. If we look at Australia, it is around 9,614. If we look at Brazil, it is 3,000. China, it is 6,199. France, it is 7,264. So the important takeaway from this slide is that going forward, as our economy grows, there will be a significant rise in the per capita consumption of electricity.
Sir, voice is.
Hello. Yes.
Sir, there is a missing of voice.
Am I audible?
Voice is, I think, missing.
You are audible, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, you are audible.
Oh, thank you. So going forward, we see that with the economy growing in the coming years, with the planned policies by the Government of India and the aspirational growth of the population of India, this 1331 figure is going to significantly rise. And the Government of India is planning to
Sir,
see.
voice is, I think, mixing up sound is.
So the Government of India has planned that this figure could go around 2,500 million units per capita in the coming years. So that is what the entire electricity sector is planning about. Now, this slide captures the legislative, policy and regulatory framework of electricity sector in the country. We have since the electricity sector is corporatized, all the public sector companies which are generating in the business of generation, distribution and transmission are incorporated under the Companies Act. So the Company Act, the Electricity Act, the Environmental Protection Act, Forest Conservation, these are all the acts under which generation, transmission and distribution of electricity is governed. On the policy framework side, the government regularly updates the national electricity policy, the national R&R policy, new hydro policy, to national tariff policy, integrated energy policy for covering all sources of energy, including renewable energy. And of late, the government has also come up with a latest energy storage obligation, going as there is a widespread penetration of renewable energy in the national grid. There will be a requirement of energy storage, and that has been captured in the energy storage policy, which has come as a guideline for all state discoms and generators. So the regulatory structure, it comprises of Central Electricity Authority, which is the nodal agency under the terms of Electricity Act 2003. Then the regulator in terms of tariff determination is Central Electricity Regulatory Commission for the Government of India, and likewise we have state electricity regulatory commissions for each state and union territories. Now, let me come to hydro development in the country. This graph actually captures the growth of installed capacity, installed capacity in the country. So today, as on date, we have around 46,850 megawatts of installed hydro capacity, out of which around 4,600 is pump storage. The balance is conventional hydro. And we can see that up till around 1997, the growth was not very accelerated, but post 97, there has been an accelerated growth in hydro, and of late it has picked up recently with the new hydro policy being announced by the Government of India. Now, if we look at the total capacity of 46,850 megawatt, around 27,254 megawatt is owned by the state, and the central government owns around 15,665, that is 34% of the total hydro capacity, and around 39,131 megawatt is in the private sector. NHPC out of the central sector owns around 44.5% of the total central installed capacity. Now, this slide actually shows what is the total exploitable hydro potential of the country and where we stand in today's time in respect of full exploitation of the resource, the national resource. So, the initial assessment of the hydro potential of the country was around 1,47,000 megawatt, but then it was revised by Central Electricity Authority under a new nomenclature, exploitable hydro potential, and it was estimated by CEA as 1,33,410 megawatt. So as we see around 42,104 megawatt of conventional hydro, the balance 4,600 was the pump storage we referred in the last slide. So around 32% of the total hydro potential is installed in the country, is commissioned. Another 11% is under development, and which amounts to around 14,097 megawatt. Now, on the right hand side, you see a slide of pump storage projects. We will discuss pump storage in the coming slides, future slides also. Pump storage are energy storage solutions to any grid. So, CEA has estimated the total potential of on-river PSPs as around 96,000, and the balance 10,000 you see are a combination of new sites identified and including off-river pump storage. We will see the fine difference between on-river and off-river PSPs in the coming slides. So out of this potential, around 4,746 megawatt is developed. This is on-river, and under development is 1,580 on-river, and off-river 1,200 megawatt. This 1,200 megawatt is the Pinapuram pump storage project being developed by Greenco in the state of Andhra Pradesh. This perhaps may be the first off-river pump storage project in the country. Now, this slide captures the status of various projects in terms of the total potential in the country. As I said, that the initial assessed potential was around 1,45,000 megawatt hydro, which was revised to exploitable potential of 1,33,410, and around 42,104 is already commissioned. 14,000 is under construction. 1,156 megawatt is still under held up for various contractual aspects or geological aspects, and around 20,000 megawatt projects are under various stages of concurrence by Central Electricity Authority, and they stand concurred. The construction is yet to be taken up, and around 8,200 megawatt projects have been returned by the Central Electricity Authority with some observations to the developers, and balance projects are either yet to be allotted or under survey and investigation. Pump storage potential, we can see that we have already discussed this figure, that's 96,000. This was the on-river pump storage project assessed by CEA, and out of which around 59,000 has been accessed based on studies. Out of this 96, 59 can be done at present, and out of this around 4,700 is under commission, and as we have seen that around 1,580 is under construction. So we will look at these pump storage projects in detail in the future slides. Now, this chart typically captures the amount of the number of clearances which are required for executing a hydroelectric project in the country today. The activity starts with signing a MOU with the state government, because state government is the owner of the potential. So state government signs a MOU or implementation agreement with any developer, whether be it a public sector or it be a state sector, or be it a private sector. Then the developer is obligated to prepare a feasibility report or a detailed project report. This detailed project report is to be approved by the central regulator, that is the Central Electricity Authority. And before actually the construction begins, we have to take environmental clearance, Forest Rights Act clearances, Forest Clearance Stage 1, National Board of Wildlife Clearance, Defense clearances, Interstate and International Clearance, Forest Clearance Stage 2. And once all these clearances and EIA MP studies have been done is available, then the project is posed for the PIB or investment clearances. Now, this investment clearance is a important milestone for projects being developed in the public sector or the state sector. But for private sector, they have to submit all these to the lenders of the project, which are the banks or financial institutions or multilateral financial institutions outside the country. So once that funding is closed, either through PIB, CCA, or through the private bank lenders, then the project construction is awarded to the contractors, and then the construction starts. The important thing over here is that irrespective of the project, whether it is in the public sector, state sector, or it is in the private sector, concurrence of CEA is essential for projects costing more than 2,500 crores. So concurrence of CEA is the technical clearance of the project feasibility from Central Electricity Authority. Now, when we discuss feasibility, then we discuss both the technical feasibility as well as the financial feasibility. Now, this slide captures a typical timeline of the various activities involved in the development of a hydroelectric project, right from the signing of the MOU, allotment of the project, to commissioning of the project. So we can see that it takes around a year for preparation of the DPR and getting them cleared. Takes another 30 months from Central Electricity Authority. So it takes around 3 years to prepare the DPR and to get its concurrence from the Central Electricity Authority. Parallelly, we process the case. Once the pre-feasibility report is prepared, we start the processing for obtaining EIA, EMP, that is the Environment Impact Assessment and Environment Management Plans, Forest Right Acts, planned forest clearances, and parallelly we also start the environmental clearance and clearances for the project. And once these are achieved, then the project is posed for CEA concurrence. So in all, we can see that it takes around 36 months at the most optimistic scenario to get the project to a concurrence stage from the allotment point. And then another, we can add 4 to 5 months to 8 months for the investment clearances, and either it is the lenders or the Government of India PIB and CCA clearances. And then another, once the clearance is received, then another 3 or 4 months for the land acquisition is anticipated. And once the land is acquired, the project is finally posed for CCEA clearance, and that is the cabinet clearance or cabinet committee of economic affairs clearance for the taking up the project. And once this CCA clearance is obtained, then we can start with the construction of the project. Now, depending on the layout of the project, whether it has a tunnel or it has an underground powerhouse or it is a surface powerhouse with no tunnel, whether it is a dam toe powerhouse, the construction period can vary from 48 months to 84 months. So 48 months is a very optimistic period, and 84 months is a normal period with a underground layout. Now, let us look at what are the advantages of hydropower. Hydropower, as we can see, that it's a no fossil fuel, negligible greenhouse gas emissions, no toxic byproducts, substitutes fossil fuels. Thermal coal gas, if we look at the GHG emissions per unit of energy produced, then we can see that hydro is just about the lowest. And Thermal, on the other hand, is around 957 to 422, depending upon the technology and the type of coal they're using. And if we look at the support to the grid, we will look at these aspects of hydro benefits in the future slide also. You see, hydroelectric projects provide a lot of support to the grid in the form of peaking and balancing power, voltage and frequency regulation, flexibility in generation, black start capability, and spinning reserve. However, unfortunately, none of these ancillary services were being paid to the hydro developers in the country. It has only been lately computed, the benefit has been understood, it has been modeled, and it has been valued, and now it is being monetized in the form of regulation. The effort towards that has already been started, and in the next few slides, we will also see what is the value of each and every of this ancillary benefit. I am happy to state that Ministry of Power initiated a study under the then Joint Secretary Hydro for working out viability of hydro projects, and one of the key elements of the viability of hydro project was to value and monetize these ancillary benefits. I was fortunate to be a part of that committee which submitted its report, and the recommendations of that committee have been accepted by the regulator, and some of them have been implemented as regulation, and some of them are being under consideration. So environmental sustainability is another positive feature of hydroelectric power stations. No consumptive use of water, provide drinking water, that is the additional use. Increased river flow in lean seasons, cat plan and compensatory afforestation we carry out. If we look at the financial benefits out of a hydropower station, then considering a long life of around 40 years, as per the tariff regulation today, the life of a hydroelectric project is 40 years initially. Although the life of the structure is 100 years, but initially the tariff is determined for a period of 40 years. So, barring the initial high tariffs in the initial years when the loan is to be returned, after the first 12 years, there is a drastic reduction in the tariff for hydroelectric projects. And no geotechnical risk or price risk rise, because since there is no raw material, then therefore there is no price shock in terms of price rise of this hydroelectric power. So with the passage of time, the tariff of a hydroelectric project keeps on decreasing, unlike thermal or gas or any other source of power. And it is an assured source of power. It is a reliable. Science has developed models which can reliably predict the inflow, and based on that inflow, a reliable estimate of the power to be produced can be made, and therefore the power supply is assured. And as I said, it is the cheapest power in the long run, no fuel, no long life. The last benefit, we will also look at the figures or what benefits, social sustainability benefits the hydroelectric projects bring about in like improving the living condition, income, employment, and infrastructure, adequate R&R package, local area develop. LADF is local area development fund, increased agriculture productivity, water scarcity, and flood control. Just to give you a brief flavor of what kind of development, local development hydroelectric projects bring about in all stages of development. I will cite an example of a project being under construction by NHPC in Assam by the name of Subansiri. It is the largest hydroelectric project under construction in the country today. And when the project was started in 2003, the offset from the National Highway 51, there is a small village called Gogamukh, from where the project is around 17 kilometers. In 2003, Gogamukh was such a small village that you would not find even a fellow to put a puncture in your vehicle. If there is a puncture in your vehicle, right on the national highway, you would not find a person to even repair a tire for puncture. But today, if you go there, you see air-conditioned malls over there. You see a lot of economic activity happening there, and whatever products you can buy in your own town, Jammu or Srinagar, you can buy that in Gogamukh. So just to give you all this in a figure point of view, uh, the project today has more than 7,000 people staying there for during construction. So if you take a monthly budget of around 5,000 rupees per family, and you multiply by 7,000, and you see how much of economic activity is generated there and how much of development happens over there. And we in the coming slides, we will also see what are the benefits given by the project developers to the state government and central government while developing the project. Now, this slide captures the various benefits as per the current law in the country. Wherever a hydroelectric project is located, it has to provide 12% free power to the home state. Then, over and above this 12%, 1% additional power is to be given towards local area development fund, provided the state also contributes equal percentage for the local area development fund. Then there is employment generation. It is estimated that per megawatt, a employment generation of a hydroelectric project throughout its life is around 1.45. So, and it brings, as we have discussed, socio-economic and infrastructure development. Then under the Companies Act, all developers and companies are obligated to carry out corporate social responsibility works, both during construction as well as post-commissioning. Then, apart from this, there are other benefits which are created by hydroelectric projects such as tourism, navigation, fisheries, which the state has all the rights to reap benefit out of these three activities. Now, as I said in the little while ago, you can see that during construction, how much of funds actually go to the state government by the developers. If you look at the, this is on the left-hand side, you see are the various heads in which the expenditure is carried out while developing a hydroelectric project. So the B land, you see 100% cost is given to the state economy, including rehabilitation and resettlement. If you see the cost of works, there are around 35% of the cost, including SGST. State GST is contributed to the state economy, 9% SGST, 1% building construction worker cess, and unskilled labor and other provisions. Buildings, 100% cost except GST, 9% is contributed to the state economy. Likewise, you can see even maintenance during construction, communication, environmental and ecology, capitalization of abatement of land revenue, and establishment cost, that is 30% provision is given to the state as a benefit. Now, as we discussed earlier, these are the ancillary services. So we carried out a study that the ancillary services which are provided by a hydroelectric project to the grid, how are they regulated in terms of monetization throughout the world? So we studied three markets. The PGM market is the Pennsylvania, New Jersey market, ERCOT markets, CAISO markets, and European markets, which are freely traded on the power exchange. So we studied the various ancillary services like spinning reserve, ramping tertiary services, reactive power control, black start, startup and shutdown services. And we based on this study, we transferred those values to the Indian scenario. And you can see that a spinning reserve can have a monetized value of around 38 paisa to 43 paisa. A ramping tertiary reserve can have a monetized value of around 23 paisa to 44 paisa per unit. A black start, startup and shutdown can have a value of around 0.08 to 0.173. Black start can have a value of 0.001 to 0.006. All these services are provided by hydropower stations to the national grid, but unfortunately, they were not being monetized in the tariff. But after this study, which was conducted, which was completed last year, the regulator has considered some of the ancillary benefits for remuneration to the hydro developers to make it more viable in terms of energy in the grid. Now, why this was essential? Because with the penetration of solar and wind energy, which has a relatively lesser cost, which are cheaper now, A solar energy today costs us around 2 rupee 50 paise per unit to 3 rupee 50 paise for floating solar, and a wind costs us around 4 rupees. However, hydro in the initial years costs around 5.5 rupees today. So to make it saleable and to make it viable, if these ancillary benefits are monetized and remuneration is made available to the hydro developers, then the hydro projects become a little more viable and on the national perspective. Now, apart from the this was the method by which we have calculated. We calculated the value based on the rate prevailing on the power exchange in India. That is the benchmark rate of 3 rupee 50 paise, and based on the percentage contribution in the overall international markets, we calculated the weight value of each and every benefit, and that was the methodology potential value we calculated and apprised the regulator how these can be monetized and how these can be valued. Similarly, for other benefits, we have already startup and shutdown, black start, peaking capability. We have all discussed these values. So I just wanted to share what methodology was used to compute the valuation of the benefit. Again, this flood moderation benefit is captured for compensation to the developers, hydro developers in the country. This was prevailing before also, but now the methodology of computing this benefit has changed a bit, that the actual money spent on the damage caused due to floods is the important criteria for assessment of the flood moderation values. Then this point, the last point, carbon emission reduction, since hydroelectric projects generate least amount of carbon dioxide, so this is one area where carbon credits can be claimed by hydroelectric projects, and we have given a methodology to calculate the value, and this has also come out in the form of a gazette in the form of for carbon credit benefits, and going forward this will become a very important tool for development, not only a tool or a financial incentive for development of hydroelectric projects. Now, these are another potential benefits of hydroelectric project: job creation, irrigation, recreation, to tourism, etc. And we, although these are not monetized, but we have given some indirect insights of how these can be valued or monetized, but still they are yet to be captured. This is a summary of all these benefits which we discussed in the last 3-4 slides. That each and every one of them ancillary benefit, what can be the value in terms of this. So taking for granted that this comes into regulation, and 5.5 rupees is the cost of setting up a hydroelectric project per unit, then you can see that if not all, but even some of these benefits are extended to the hydro developers, then the tariff for hydro can be very well reduced to around 3.5 to 4 rupees, which will then make it viable with solar and solar and wind. However, going forward for development of hydro, there are a lot of barriers, and these barriers are primarily responsible for private sector not willfully coming forward for development of these hydro potential of the country, and it has been left to either the state governments or the public sector to develop the hydroelectric projects. The various constraints, which are rehabilitation, resettlement issues, law and order, these two are important, very important issues which cause delays, time overruns and cost overruns in doing hydroelectric project. A committed state government in maintaining law and order and rehabilitation, resettlement issues can solve a lot of the problems of early delayed completion of the hydroelectric project. The best examples in the country were shown by NHPC when a proactive state government in Madhya Pradesh saw development of two projects, Indra Sagar and Omkareshwar, in a shortest possible time when these projects were handed over to NHPC after prolonged delays because of R&R issues and law and order issues. So then this we have already discussed non-monetization of intangible benefits of hydro. We have already discussed this. Power evacuation issues are there, but however they are not very critical in reference to rehabilitation, RR issue and law and order issues. High capital cost, again this has to be looked into because the high capital cost makes two things impossible for development. One, high cost results in high tariff. High tariff results in non-saleability of hydropower. So, and the fear of lenders not giving money because they fear that the power will not be saleable. And the second important reason is that high cost means that developers are not able to arrange that kind of funds in case they are not very robust and very financially sound developers. So only state governments or public sector enterprises can raise that capital to develop. And if we look at if there is a time overrun or a cost overrun in the project, then this problem further accentuates. So, and hydroelectric projects, since all the good sites are by and large developed, so currently the balanced hydro potential is located very in remote areas, tough terrains, poor infrastructure, and poor infrastructure causes delays in execution, plus they increase the high capital cost of the project because roads are to be built, bridges are to be built, colonies are to be built in remote areas for people to be posted there who will be running the project during construction and operation. So this further leads to problem. Then land acquisition issues are there, which are critical for development of hydroelectric projects. However, government is very keenly looking at the various aspects of land acquisition, and new models of land acquisition are being talked of and being implemented. Now, viability issues because of the high cost, as we have discussed, why high cost results in high tariff, and since with the ingress of solar and wind in the grid, which is cheaper, so viability issues of hydro remains. Then, since hydroelectric projects invariably involve excavation in hills and underground structures, so unpredictable geology further causes problems of execution, which results in time delays and as well as cost delays, and hence the long gestation period. Even otherwise, a gestation period of a hydroelectric project, as we have seen in this slide on times, it varies from 48 months to 84 months. And given unpredictable geology, law and order, land acquisition issues, and R&R issues, this gestation period can go even longer, which in turn increases the high capital cost because of escalation in the executed cost of work as well as interest during construction. Now, this is a aspect which I wanted to share with all the participants, is that you see, for a public sector or a state government project, hydroelectric project, it is a regulated project. We are regulated by the regulator. So the cost which we incur in commissioning a project, it is not necessary that we get all the cost approved by the regulator for being charged in the tariff. So here are 3-4 examples which we have cited, that for our one of the Parvati 2, we were not given the cost for establishment head because of the time overrun and cost overrun, and it was restricted to the ceiling limits in the DPR guidelines. However, the actual cost was much higher than the ones which were given. Further in Chavera 3 and Parvati 2 again, the O miscellaneous and other heads were limited to the ceiling limits set in the DPR guidelines and not as per actual. Similarly, the head audit and account were disallowing the capital cost incurred under the head by CA. Although there was a provision of 1% for audit and accounts, however, this was not allowed by CA. So these were all these unallowed costs, audit and accounts, borne by the developer. Now, Government of India is aware of all these constraints which we have discussed in the previous slide, and they have taken a very proactive step in bringing out policy initiatives which will accelerate the development of hydro projects. Now, the government has devoted its mind on all the aspects of the project viability, minimizing time and cost overrun, and various policy expediting clearances, and various measures have been brought out. Interstate transmission charge, ISTS waiver for hydroelectric projects and PSPs, bundling of hydropower with cheaper RE. We will look at this bundling of hydropower in the coming slides ahead. Tariff rationalization measures like deferred staggered free power, allotment of project for a longer period, waiver of SGST, and booking of LADF to any head other than project cost to bring down the project tariff. Consultations with financial institutions for increasing the tenure of loan and reduction of interest rates to reduce the tariff during initial years. Proposed inclusion of transmission up to the pooling station for support of enabling infrastructure. So these are all measures taken by the government under the various policy measures. Like one of the policy measures the government has taken is declaring large hydropower projects as renewable energy source, hydro purchase obligation as a separate entity within the non-solar renewable purchase obligations, tariff rationalization measures as we have discussed here, then budgetary support for flood moderation, again incentive for projects which provide flood moderation, and budgetary support to a cost enabling infrastructure wide circular dated 28 September 2021. Government has also taken a view on according faster clearances, and CEA has been gracious enough to reduce the time period for concurrence taken by it before. So now it has been reduced to 150 days for examination of DPRs, and all the survey and for fast tracking of all the process. Now, actually, before we look at the pump storage development, I wanted to first show this graph. The graph on the left you see is the all India demand on a particular day, that is 24 December 2021. So what you see is that India today has a demand curve which is a double duck shaped. So we have a peak demand in the daytime and we have a peak demand in the evening time. And this demand has to be met by the various sources of energy generation. Now, on the right hand side, what you see is the generation profile of various generation resources. Now, this yellow line you see is the generation profile of a solar project. It starts generating somewhere around 7 o'clock in the morning and ends up at around 6 a.m. in the evening. The blue line you see is the generation profile of a typical run-of-the-river hydroelectric plant. We provide a peaking support in the morning, we provide a peaking support in the evening, and during the day there is either the plant is shut down or there is minimal generation. The pink line you see is the generation profile of a thermal, gas, or an oil-based generating unit, and which can be varied according to the requirement of the grid. And the wind and this nuclear, what you see here in the bottom are practically wind happens mostly during the night hours, and the nuclear again, since it is a very small composition of the national grid, it is basically a base power requirement fulfilling resource. The important thing to note over here is that with the kind of demand the nation has today, and with the more and more ingress of the solar and wind energy with high variability, has necessitated demand for energy storage solutions. So energy storage solutions are required for maintaining reliability and stability of the grid. And this energy storage solution is provided by two solutions primarily today in the world. One is the pump storage and another is the battery storage. So now with this background, we will now look at the pump storage aspect. So what is a pump storage project? Pump storage project is a very simple project. We create a reservoir at a height and we create a bottom reservoir, and whenever there is a demand, we release water from the upstream reservoir and generate power and store the same water in the downstream reservoir. And when there is surplus energy in the grid and there is no demand, then we pump the same water to the upstream reservoir and store it as an energy resource. So this is pump storage project is essentially a water battery. So in common language, we can call it a pump storage project to be a water battery, which provides us energy as and when required, whenever there is a demand in the grid and whenever the peaking demand is to be met. Now, since independence, since the generation profile was largely based on thermal, gas and oil based generation, so there was no variability in the grid. So the thermal power stations have a very high PLF and they have a constant generation profile, as we saw in that graph a little while ago. So hence the requirement of pump storage or a battery storage or an energy storage solution in the grid was not felt to that extent. And that was the reason why no pump storage project came up in the country. So what we saw in the initial slides, that the total capacity of pump storage in the country is only around 4,600. But now with the more and more ingress of renewable energy, variable renewable energy, particularly solar and wind in the grid, there is a need for more and more energy storage, and the estimated storage requirement by CEA is around 28 GW by 2030. So, and to make these projects viable, government has again taken very numerous initiatives. We discussed that CEA has found out 96,000 megawatt of potential for on-river pump storage projects. So those projects, reassessment of those projects was carried out by all CPSUs, and government has announced a trajectory for energy storage obligation, which all state governments are required to follow, so that energy storage solutions are implemented on a commercial basis. Then waiver of interstate transmission charges for PSPs has been accorded, budgetary support for enabling infrastructure, and reduction in the time of appraisal of DPRs from 900 to 720 days. No upfront premium for project allocation, monetization of ancillary services by PSPs, allowed to participate in all market segments of power exchange. Now, this is very important. You see, till now, the power was traded in the country through a PPA, long-term power purchase agreements. But now it is the stated stand of the government that power shall be more and more sold and bought on the power exchanges, and long-term PPAs will only constitute a small fraction of the total power being bought and sold. And that is why you see that when we discuss the total installed capacity in the country, then the share of private sector in the total installed capacity is now more than 50%. So because more and more power is being traded through the stock exchange, and stock exchanges, the power exchanges have come up with various instruments, various methodology for trading of that power under the various segments. We will look at those segments in the coming slides also. Now, as we discussed pump storage, as I said, the pump storages have been classified as two type of schemes. One is an on-stream pump storage scheme, and one is an off-stream open loop pump storage scheme, and one is off-stream closed loop pump storage scheme. Now, what is the essential difference? In an on-stream pump storage scheme, both the reservoirs are located on a river, stream, or a nala. So what we said that CEA has identified 96,000 megawatt of pump storage potential was the on-stream pump storage potential based on both the reservoirs being on various rivers, river, streams, or nalas. But of late, one offshoot of this was that one of the reservoirs can be located on a river or a nala, and the second reservoir can be located, can be created artificially, so that the same benefit of rotation of water from the bottom, from the downstream to the upstream, can be carried out to create a pump storage scheme. So that was called a off-stream open loop pump storage scheme. However, one researcher in Australia in the year 2021 did a GIS-based study, and he computed a, is a potential of all countries in the world where off-stream closed-loop pump storage schemes were devised. So this is artificial a capacity based on the geography. A reservoir can be created between the hills in some location, and hills can be created. A reservoir can be created in the downstream location, and the water can be rotated between these two reservoirs. So that is called both the reservoirs are not located on any river or a stream, but the fulfilling of that reservoir is through the rains or through some seasonal nala. So that the off-stream closed potential is estimated to be around 2.5 lakh megawatt in the country. In the new hydro policy, Central Electricity Authority has taken this responsibility that they will map this potential on a scientific basis, and in the times to come, in the years ahead, this off-stream closed-loop pump storage projects will be the flavor of the market, because they will take less time to develop. They can be tailor-made to the capacity required, and their size will ensure that they can be developed with least funds. Now, coming over to now the energy transition scenario. You see, there was a meeting of head of the states in Glasgow, and that was called COP26 commitments. And India has made 5 commitments to the world community, which are commonly called as Panchamrit. And the commitments are to reach 500 GW of non-fossil energy capacity by 2030, meet 50% of India energy requirement from renewable energy by 2030, reduce the carbon intensity of the economy by 45% below 2005 levels by 2030, reduce total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons by 2030, and achieve the target of net zero emissions by 2070. These are the 5 commitments which have been made by the Government of India, our Honorable Prime Minister, and they are commonly called as Panchamrit commitments. And now, if you look at after having made these commitments globally, what is the Indian perspective to this clean energy transition? We are the 3rd largest energy producer and consumer in the world. India can play a crucial role in the energy transition. And however, it has to be kept in mind that this 3rd largest energy producer and consumer, we will go further than this, because as we discussed in the earlier slides, our per capita consumption of energy is going to increase in the coming years as Indian economy grows, as aspirations of Indian population grows. This energy consumption is going to increase, and therefore this figure is also going to change, and hence the need for developing sustainable energy solutions for the country. Now, the need is to create energy solutions transition in the face of ever-rising temperature and climate catastrophes. Now, the challenge is that as our demand will increase, so will be the requirement to mitigate adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore need for renewable energy for the nation will become imperative. And this national targets, COP26 targets, commitments made by Government of India in front of the global community we have already discussed. So that generates. Now, what is the benefits and challenges of energy transition? Now, you see, our major energy bill of India today is import of fossil fuels. So if we are self-sufficient on the renewable energy, then it will lead us to the reduced dependency on energy imports. And it is not only true for India, but it is true for most of the developing countries. We will look at, in the next slide, we will also look at what is driving renewable energy globally. So this is the Indian perspective I wanted to share, but in the coming slide, we will also share, we'll discuss what are the global imperatives for shift to the renewable energy. Now, reduced economic susceptibility to fluctuations in energy prices. This is very important. We will discuss this in terms of the Ukraine war crisis, which happened 1.5 years back. How it impacted the energy prices globally. We'll look at that also. Now, improved energy efficiency, lower carbon emissions. We have already discussed that. Now, what are the challenges of energy transition? As I said, that as more and more solar and wind energy integrate in the national grids, then energy mix and RE integration itself becomes a challenge. Grid stability and flexibility requirements become a challenge. Energy storage, long-term energy backup capacity become a challenge. EV charging infrastructure becomes a challenge. Regulatory challenges come into a picture because to make them, these are cheaper in terms of cost per tariff. However, for grid stability, we require other sources of energy, and blending and bundling of renewable energy source with other energy sources is also of critical significance. Now, these are the trends I discussed a little while ago. That what are the driving trends for renewable power globally? The first and foremost is the bolder climate ambitions. More and more countries, as the world is warming up, more and more countries are coming up with bolder climate emission targets and commitments to transform their economies powered by fossil fuels to renewables. And the second important part is that electricity will power more and more of human activities rather than any other source. So there will be a greater demand of electricity because as fossil fuel and coal will be brought out of the human activity interference, then the power drive will come through electricity, and more of this electricity will come through renewable energy. Now, the second aspect is the heightened focus on energy security. Now, this has to be understood in what happened in the Ukraine war about 1.5 years ago. So when the Ukraine war happened, there was a crisis of energy in the European Union. Now, what they did, there was a sudden price shock because the Russian oil and gas was not acceptable to the Europeans, and there was sudden price shock in the energy markets in Europe. Now, this resulted in two-way response. The one response which happened was that the prices of energy increased overnight to 2 times or 2.5 times the original cost of energy, which led to creation of demand suppression, because people were not able to afford that much energy, even in rich economies like Europe. And the second was to mitigate this impact of price rise. These countries restarted their coal-fired power plants and their gas plants, which was contrary to their commitments to the climate ambitions they had already made. So they had to go back on their commitments, that whatever climate commitment they had made. So energy security is now the focus of all countries across the geography of the world, that how to meet the energy requirement of the nation in a sustainable way and in a manner which does not harm the environment. Now, the third reason which is driving the economic renewable energy globally is the rise in climate-centric industrial policies by nations. The best example of this is the trend started with China, Made in China 2025 plan, a sweeping plan first unveiled in 2015 to reduce China's dependence on foreign technology and to develop advanced manufacturing in 10 priority sectors. It was followed by by the name of US Inflation Reduction Act and the European Union's Green Deal Industrial Plan. Of late, India has also launched the Make in India plan. And let us keep in mind that all these plans prioritize the development of clean energy technologies. Countries are using tax credits and direct investment to advance their climate ambitions and industrial competitiveness. So this is again forcing the renewable sector for a greater trajectory of development. The third and the final reason of the growth of renewable power, as we have discussed in the past, in the little while ago, that is the cost competitiveness of renewable power. So in comparison to other sources of power, the renewable energy is very cost competitive, and hence it is the preferred source for generation. However, since it is variable in nature, it brings along with it the requirement of energy storage and integration with other sources of energy. Now, having discussed the requirement of the importance of providing stability and reliability to the grid, the blending and bundling of renewable power with hydropower and other forms of energy was studied, and this was found out that there can be a viable way of blending and bundling with renewable energy for sale of thermal and hydro energy. Now, my audience would like to understand what is the difference between a blending and bundling. So, blending and bundling essentially is based on the co-location or non-co-location of the two different generation resources. Like if you have the renewable energy resource and the other energy resource located in the same location, then this is a case of bundling, and this is a case of blending. And if it is a non-co-located, then it is a case of bundling. So, so we discussed that how can this bundled power be sold on the market. So these are the various instruments which have come up in the stock market.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. If everybody could turn off the microphones so as to avoid the interference.
Thank you. So these are the various instruments which have been developed for trading of power on the power exchanges. That is RTC, round the clock power supply, peak power supply, bundled power sale. And these instruments, if you happen to open up the websites of power exchanges, the Indian Power Exchange, Indian Exchange, and the Power Exchange of India, then you will see that all these instruments and the instantaneous values of tariff is available. And now, again, these are other instrument term ahead markets, and GTAM is the green term ahead market. There is a special instrument only for green power, that is the green term ahead market, which has been brought out, and day ahead market instrument has been brought out, in which the bundled power with RE can be sold, and the developers can realize their revenue by sale of power on the grid. Now, this graph, this slide captures the growth capacity addition plan by 2032. We can see that we have a trajectory of around additional capacity of around 291,800 megawatt approximately by 2027, and roughly, which means around 50,000 megawatt or 55,000 megawatt per year we are going to add in the grid, and most of this power will be the renewable energy, the solar, wind, and hydro, conventional hydro. One new resource has also come up in India now, that is being developed as a renewable energy, and that is the offshore wind. Till now, we were developing onshore wind, but now since India has a 7,000 kilometer long shoreline, so offshore technology has also matured in the West, and India has also brought out tenders for development of offshore wind projects, which we will see in the coming years to come. this is again, we have discussed earlier also, what is the role of renewable energy. GHG emission mitigate करते हैं, technology advance promote करते हैं, environment sustainability promote करते हैं, access promote करते हैं, energy. Access is very important because with rooftop solar, we can provide energy, electricity to the remotest place, and we need not put transmission line, distribution line, or to cater to commercially unviable areas. However, rooftop can provide that energy over there. So decentralization, new business models of OPEX and franchisee will come up with this renewable energy model, so that the role of DISCOMs is felt to reduce in the coming years to come, as rooftop progresses and as decentralized renewable energy projects come up. And plus they provide us energy security, that whatever is the requirement of the nation, we cannot be fleeced by artificial price shocks, as was seen during the Ukraine war. Hydro is well suited to aid and encourage this energy transition. It provides clean and environmental friendly energy with low carbon footprint, grid stability, and support the ancillary benefits we have already discussed. Energy and water security. In addition to the energy it provides, it also provides water security, which is going to be a huge challenge going ahead, because with the increase in population, the availability of drinking water will become a huge challenge in the future. So hydroelectricity, hydro projects will cater to that challenge as well, and reliable power at affordable rates in the long run. NHPC, as a bit about NHPC. NHPC stands committed to reduce emissions intensity by GDP by 45% by 2030 from 2005 level into toward decarbonization. There is a requirement of integration of solar wind. We have already discussed this. Although the share of solar wind power capacity in the North is increasing, exponentially the power from these resources is available intermittently. The variable energy generation profile of these resources force us to look at energy storage solutions. Hydro, with its inherent capacity to quickly ramp up and swiftly shut off the solar and wind power, must be supplemented with hydro to meet the electricity demand fluctuations in order to maintain grid stability. NHPC is the leading organization in hydropower sector, providing flexible power essential for grid stability. And that is all I have for today. I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I saw a few hands raised, so please come up if you have some questions.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, it's really been wonderful and informative on your part. Sir, my domain is computer science and engineering.
Okay.
And my area of skills is, sir, cyber security. As far as cyber threats apprehension is concerned, I think that question might be out of domain in today's lecture perspective. But how the department is ready to handle the apprehension of threats as far as cyber attacks are concerned, sir?
That's a very relevant question, sir, which you've asked. You see, as the grids are integrated and they operate on a real-time basis, and there is another element to this, that going forward, say next 5 years or 6 years, you will see a regional grid between India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and right up to Myanmar. So we can also see a regional grid. So the possibility of a cyber threat, cyber attack is very much there. However, Government of India has formed a CERT authority now, and they take up periodic audits of all power stations, and they have come up with a very elaborate SOPs and guidelines, and all the equipment, digital equipment that is purchased is subjected to rigorous checks in terms of integrity with cyber threat protocols, and plus the system, the DSM system and the SCADA system based on which the plants are run and monitored are thoroughly scrutinized, and their softwares are patented and checked by the national agencies. So all these are this is work in progress, and uh, God willing, India has yet not seen a cyber threat in power sector, right? But yes, that threat is there, and is a continuous work in progress. I hope I have answered your question to the extent I could.
Thank you very much, sir. Jai Hind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you for the valuable insights. It has been really wonderful to have you on the podium today. So, I would like to invite Miss Janvi Sharma, who's a final year engineering student from Government College of Engineering and Technology, to express our gratitude through the vote of thanks. Janvi, the platform is yours.
Good evening, everyone. I, Janvi Sharma, representing the 4E Wave Committee, I'm honored to have the opportunity to present a vote of thanks at the conclusion of this session on energy transition. On behalf of the 4E Wave team, I express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Rajneesh Agarwal, Group General Manager of Operation and Maintenance at NHPC Limited. Sir, your presence and insights have enriched the session. I extend my thanks to you for accepting our invitation and generously dedicating your time to this session. Special appreciation goes to the committee members of 4E Wave for their unwavering support in organizing today's event. Particularly, I want to acknowledge Mr. Sanjay Sharma, OSD and CEI of JKPDD. He's the convener of 4E Wave Initiative, and his leadership has been instrumental in the success of the 4E Wave Initiative. Lastly, I want to express gratitude to all the delegates and students who have joined us today. Your participation has added immense value to our session. In conclusion, let us harness the momentum gained from today's session on energy transition to drive meaningful change. Together, we hold the power to shape a sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you for your engagement and commitment to this vital cause. Let's continue to collaborate and innovate towards a greener and more resilient world. I wish you all a fantastic day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So, let's keep the momentum going. Okay. Have a nice day.
Thank you.